The Supreme Court says Donald Trump has some immunity from criminal prosecution, but many questions still remain. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation from our CBN studio in Washington. I'm John Jessup. Well, in a decision split along ideological lines, the court ruled presidents have absolute immunity for core constitutional powers, but not for unofficial acts. The ruling strikes at the heart of an election interference case against former President Trump, where he faces felony charges over his attempts to overturn the 2020 election. CBN's Gary Lane has the details.
Former President Donald Trump brought the case before the court, claiming he had absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for his official acts as president on January 6, 2021.
But you're not going to do anything if you don't have immunity, because otherwise you're going to be prosecuted after you leave office.
And a majority of the justices agreed. Chief Justice John Roberts delivered the court's opinion that, quote, the nature of presidential power entitles a former president to absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority. And he's entitled to at least presumptive immunity from prosecution for all his official acts. There is no immunity for unofficial acts.
A very big win for former President Trump, recognizing for the first time this sort of immunity of ex-presidents from criminal prosecution.
The ruling kicks the January 6th case back down to the federal district court. That means the burden is now on Special Prosecutor Jack Smith to prove the former president acted unofficially with criminal motivation as candidate Trump. That will be hard to prove because the Supreme Court says both his contacts with the Justice Department and Vice President Pence to get the election overturned took place as official acts within the president's authority. As a result, the Supreme Court's decision will likely delay Jack Smith's prosecution of the former president until after the November election.
That was CBN's Gary Lane. Thank you so much, Gary. We'll hear now from more as CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, so the former president is already on a victory lap of sorts with this mixed opinion, posting today on Truth Social that it was a big win for our Constitution and democracy. David, how might Donald Trump use today's ruling to his advantage?
Well, there's quite a few different ways. First of all, it's to his advantage by the fact that, he's not going to be under any sort of trials through the end of November, possibly way into next year and the years after. So, I mean, he's gotten out of it for the time being, at least. And so that's victory right there. But once again, with the Supreme Court siding with him on this issue, it just shows more of his Teflon quality to say that, like, look, I won again. Donald Trump's all about winning and losing. And here it is. He can say he won on this. He won the other night on the debate. And he's won, quite a few times, even though he was convicted in New York, his poll numbers went up. So he won there politically. So once again, another victory the way he sees it.
David, Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn reacted to the ruling saying, quote, that this rebukes Democrats' blatant attempts to weaponize our legal system against Donald Trump. We saw the former president bring this up, as you mentioned, a few times during the debate. What role will the idea of fighting weaponization of government continue to play, not only in Trump's campaign ahead of November, but this is also what Democrats have been saying, that Trump wants to weaponize government with retribution. So how will it play on both sides?
Right. You're right. Democrats have also said this, but it's having a lot more resonance, if you will, within the MAGA movement, even really with Republicans writ large, including evangelicals. John, the culture wars of life and marriage, obviously very important. No one's saying they're not. But it's shifted under Trump. The culture war is now more about the weaponization of government. We've seen it with pro-lifers being arrested, some parents at school board meetings speaking out, and the DOJ coming after them. And we can go down the list of certain ways that evangelicals have felt the IRS. So look at IRS and some evangelicals being kind of caught in the crosshairs of that. So that has been the new contour in the culture wars here. And Donald Trump has been harping about this for a very long time.
Speaking of shifts, David, we only have about a minute left. So you'll have the Supreme Court decision, but it comes on the heels of last week's poor performance at the debate stage by President Biden. A few days out, how has the 2024 campaign shifted?
Well, you say shifted, and so I think the better word right now is shifting, ING at the end of that, because we are in the process of seeing it shift. we don't know exactly, John, where this is going to land. Right now, it just seems like this is all about Joe and Jill Biden and that decision. It all rests with him. But as the chorus gets louder, the story is not going away. John, you and I have been doing this a long time. We know about the crisis, and then, of course, the crisis blows over, and then there's the new crisis.
Right.
I don't think this one blows over, John. I think this one gets worse because every day goes on, Joe Biden gets older.
Okay.
And so this is a tough one.
David, we're going to have to leave it there. David Brody, CBN's chief political analyst, thank you so much for being with us.
Anytime. Thanks.
And when we come back, my colleague Jenna Browder brings us special reporting about Russia's ongoing war against Ukraine. You're watching CBN's Faith Nation. Stay tuned.
Well, as the war drags on in Ukraine, children are some of the hardest hit victims. Organizations on the ground are bringing help and hope to many who have escaped from the war-torn region. My co-anchor John Jessup and I spoke earlier this fall to the head of one such group helping the most vulnerable victims of the war. We're joined by Mykola Kuleba of Save Ukraine. Mykola, welcome. It's great to have you with us this evening. So to date, the Ukrainian government has verified more than 20,000 children illegally transferred from Ukraine to Russia, but that figure is estimated to be closer to 3 million. Talk about the impact this is having on children and their families.
Thank you so much. It is horrible impact on next generations, because it's hundreds of thousands of children who've been forcibly deported, and it is only 20,000 who've been identified as the deported children, but it's a huge abduction of kids, and 1.5 million of Ukrainian children live under the Russians on occupied territories and in Russia Federation, and they are hugely brainwashed by Russians. And Save Ukraine, only one who provides rescue mission and recovered these children who've been abducted. We have a network of different services, and we provide psychosocial support together with the local churches all over Ukraine.
Mykola, you talked about abductions. We know brainwashing, and we've heard of cases of abuse. Save Ukraine has been around since 2014, and your volunteers are risking their lives to help provide humanitarian aid and relief and rescue for young kids. Per the Geneva Convention, what Russia is doing is considered a war crime and considered genocide. So why aren't we seeing more forceful action, more vocal opposition from the global community?
We have to wake up. It is our call to all nations, to all civilized world, to wake up and to define this abduction as genocide, because it is a massive indoctrination of Ukrainian children, because the main goal of Putin is to destroy Ukrainian identity, is to take these kids to Russia, re-educate them, and instill hatred towards Ukraine. They want to use our kids as a weapon against Russia. And we have now thousands of Russian soldiers who died on battlefields. And these young adults have been school children on occupied territories 8 and 9 years ago. And after invasion, they were being brainwashed, and Russia used them as a weapon against Ukraine.
You're partnering with other groups too, like NGOs and churches, to provide support for these families and their and kids. Can you talk specifically about your partnership with CityServe to offer support for trauma recovery?
CityServe is our strong partner, and we are building church-based services all over Ukraine together with the local churches, with the local government. It is child care and family services, and first big center was opened suburb Kiev in Bucha area, where we provide different services, especially for kids who've been abducted, and we return them for children from combat zones, because every day we evacuate kids from combat zones, and they have huge trauma. And in this family center, we provide trauma therapy, especially for children with disabilities, for orphans. That's why our partnership is so important for future of these kids, and we want increase our capacity. That's why we need your strong support, and please help Ukraine, help Ukrainian children, pray for Ukraine and Ukrainian children.
Mykola, we just have about 30 seconds left. So how can the global church, beyond praying, help in the ongoing war? What can people do?
Yeah, first of all, to pray for our kids, because it is millions of Ukrainian children who need your support. And thank you so much. My heart is full of gratitude for all American people who helping us, for praying for us. And we have to be strong. Please don't give up and be with us.
Mykola, thank you so much. We are out of time. Mykola Kuleba with Save Ukraine, thank you for being with us. And if you have an opportunity to check out his Twitter, you'll see some very emotional and moving reunifications with families. Thank you so much, Mykola.
A direct bomb hit leads to a brush with death. When Faith Nation returns, we speak with the Fox News war correspondent who almost lost his life in Ukraine. Welcome back. In the early days of the invasion, Fox News war correspondent Benjamin Hall was struck by a Russian bomb attack in Ukraine. He recounts his miraculous survival in the book, Saved, a war reporter's mission to make it home. CBN's Wendy Griffith spoke with Hall about how his faith has guided his comeback.
This was the scene of a battle just a few days ago as the Russians tried to move forward. They're still shelling it right now.
Thanks to his trademark British accent and reporting style, it didn't take long for Fox News correspondent Benjamin Hall to stand out for his coverage of the war in Ukraine.
When we speak to these guys, they're feeling optimistic.
But on March 14th, 2022, Hall became the story as he and his crew fell under Russian attack on the outskirts of Kyiv.
We slowed down at a checkpoint, an abandoned checkpoint. As the car slowed down, out of nowhere came that first bomb, came whistling out of the sky, landed about 30 feet in front of us. Quickly, we knew we had to move, and there was a shout to reverse the car to get back. But then a few seconds later, the second bomb landed, and that landed just next to the car. It blacked me out. I was as close to death as I think you can be, in a total silent blackness. And into that blackness came my daughter, my 7-year-old daughter, Honor. And she was right in front of me, as clearly as anything. She said to me, "Daddy, you've got to get out of the car." And my eyes opened. I was brought quickly back into the world, and I grabbed my way towards the door of the car. And just after I had gotten out of the car, the third bomb hit the car itself. And that one threw me away, and I was out for a little bit.
When Ben regained consciousness, he saw the serious nature of his injuries.
I'm on fire. My right leg is gone. My left foot's gone, mostly gone. And I'm putting the flames out. I'm rolling around. I'm trying to stop the fire. No one knew where we were. No one knew we'd been hit. And there was no cell phone reception. And that was the moment there where you have to pray. You have to think, what am I going to do?
Then a car with Ukrainian special forces drove past.
It didn't see us the first time, but it got lost down the road and it came back. I woke up soon after that in a hospital inside Kyiv, a small Ukrainian hospital. But then I knew I wasn't saved either because there was no way out of the city. And then began this incredible evacuation led by Save Our Allies, who managed to get me out on the Polish Prime Minister's train.
In addition to his right leg and left foot, Hall also lost an eye and severely damaged a hand. Even worse, his longtime friend and cameraman, Pierre Zakchevsky, and Ukrainian producer Sasha Kushnova did not survive. Clinging to life, Hall had to endure a 10-hour train ride and cross the border to Poland.
We managed to break through the roadblocks to get there, break through the curfews. People were checking my wounds to see if I was really injured or if we were a Russian hit squad coming in. And that was another point where I just had to pray. And it was when I got to the Polish border 10 hours later, through incredible agony, that there was a US Black Hawk waiting. And as I rose up into the sky, then that was the time that I knew that survival was over and recovery was beginning.
Tell us about the recovery, though, because that was hard.
Yes, and the recovery continues to this day. Every day I'm at physio. I see doctors most days. There's still a lot of work to be done. But I was first taken to Landstuhl in Germany, biggest US base outside, a hospital outside, and where all the injured from Afghanistan and Iraq had been treated with very similar wounds to mine, called polytrauma.
In his new book, Saved, A War Reporter's Mission to Make It Home, Hall writes that he had to keep fighting, not just for himself, but for his wife and 3 young daughters.
I didn't want my daughters to come and see me straight away. I didn't want them to see me so badly injured, unable to move. That's what drove my recovery, knowing that instead of them coming to see me, I would get better as fast as I could and as well as I could every single day. And so every day I woke up and the plan was to do more than I did the day before.
What was it like when your daughters first saw their daddy after this?
Oh, I mean, it was this, but I was quite nervous because I had spoken to other people, veterans who'd had similar accidents as I'd had, similar limb loss, whose children were very afraid of them when they first saw them. But when I walked in that door and I knew they were waiting inside, I didn't quite know what it would be like. And then that one moment as they just all ran up and grabbed hold of me, my Honor, my eldest, wouldn't let go. And there was just this moment where she wouldn't let go of me. You're back, you're back, you're back. And we all cried. And it was just, that's what I had worked so hard to do. They were what saved me as well, was getting home. So that moment was one of just total joy, real joy.
And your wife has been such a support through all of this.
Oh, everything. I mean, one of the things I said the first time I saw her when I was in Landstuhl in Germany, a few days after I got out, the first thing I said was sorry. I said, I'm so sorry. Not because of what had happened, but because of what lay ahead. I knew that it meant a different life for us. She said, what have we got to do? Where do we do it? We will do it together.
And Benjamin, you said you felt the prayers of everybody during your recovery and even now.
Every single day I received letters. I received messages in the mail and social media from people across America, thousands of them, sending prayers, willing me on, sending blessings. And every single time I read one of those, it gave me that another little level of strength to push through. And, you know, in many ways, I am now much closer to God. I feel closer than I was before.
I've heard in some of your interviews, you've said, God saved me for a reason. Do you know what that reason is?
No, I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say I know what it is, but I do know that I was saved because of incredible support and help and prayers and kindness and bravery from other people. And if I can give some of that back, then I think I would be doing the right thing.
And Benjamin, what about now? Are you back full-time at Fox?
I have a couple of operations coming up in the next month, so not at the moment, but we're already talking about some plans, and I want to focus on some of the optimistic side as well. I'm so amazed at the incredible people I've met, the prayers that have been said, and the heroes around me that actually for the first time I want to tell some of those really uplifting, optimistic stories.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
Coming up, meet the frontline Christian chaplains who are ministering to the victims of the Russian invasion. Finally tonight, with casualties in the hundreds of thousands in the Ukraine war, many of the injured bear not only physical and visible wounds, but also unseen emotional pain too. Ukrainian chaplains offer spiritual healing to those wounds. CBN contributor Chuck Holton reports on the growing demand for these caregivers for the soul.
This Ukrainian medic's GoPro camera video reveals the war's chaos. An artillery shell explodes near his car, wounding him before he can ensure his patient's safety. Despite his injuries, he persists in his mission of caring for comrades, highlighting these heroes' crucial role. Once the wounded arrive at the aid station, Army chaplains immediately comfort and pray for them.
We call them hospitaliers. They only work in hospitals, intensive care units, amputees, psychiatric clinics. And also there's narco clinics that we work with, and lots of soldiers do get addicted because of the stress PTSD that they face. And they cannot cope with it, so we need to work with them. They're struggling. Lots of them lost their families.
While medics can treat the physical injuries, emotional trauma persists. With a shortage of medics, chaplains often take on the responsibility, providing aid and healing to both soldiers and civilians. Many chaplains maintain strong personal connections to the area, which can intensify their challenges.
Lots of them have their families in occupied territory. At this moment, they cannot do anything to it. So we have problems. The chaplains I work with, they go front lines. We go all the way across the front line. In my team, we've got 2 women, both of us mothers of 5.
Christian Hickey, an American Green Beret and ex-police officer, relocated to Ukraine last year, committed to helping these chaplains.
Chaplaincy is not something that's been around at all in Ukraine. It was just officially established in 2022 after the war started. It had unofficially started in 2014. But now I sit on a board where I can actually have direct insight and give great advice on how the chaplaincy corps should work and help train those chaplains so they can go out and help soldiers who are seeking answers, who are looking for something, and this reveal Christ to them right there in the trenches.
Chaplains recognize the critical nature of their mission.
If a soldier is conscious, then we talk to them. We hold their hands. We try to take their attention away from their wounds. Medics like us because they like to work with chaplains because we stabilize them.
This mission is so important. It's the person on the ground, Russian or Ukrainian, who are fighting each other, who are dying, and who are needing some sort of help. We want to stand in solidarity, say, hey, we love you, we're here to support you, and to give them something that's everlasting. It's not something that's internal, not something that's going to go away after we leave.
What we want to do is we want to preach the pure gospel, just like pray to them, lead them to Jesus, take their hands, and like literally pray and they accept Jesus Christ in their hearts.
The wartime horrors can affect the chaplains as deeply as the soldiers. Katerina reflects on her emotions just after hearing of a friend's death.
If you ask me to describe what war is, I'd probably use one word to describe it. It's just a waste. It's just a waste of money, resources, a waste of lives, waste of where sometimes we run out of strength. There's just a waste of a whole country, and it's absolutely pointless. Absolutely pointless. At the end, nobody wins.
Chuck Holton, CBN News, Ukraine.
Thank you, Chuck. And that's going to do it for Faith Nation this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.